Welcome to How Leading Companies Gain Control Over Their Spend, a panel discussion brought to you by the Controllers Council. My name is Neil Brown, Executive Director of the Controllers Council. And before we get to our exciting panel discussion, let me share some brief housekeeping items. First, we'll have audience Q&A if time allows. So attendees, please submit questions via the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll get to as many as possible. If we can't get to questions, we can follow up post-webcast. Next, this webinar has continuing professional education credits, or CPE. So we'll have 3 audience polling questions for CPE. And if you're not seeking CPE, you could answer the questions for benchmarking as well. So please participate in the poll questions via the GoToWebinar control panel. Finally, in answer to a frequent question, you will receive a link to this webcast via email in the next 24 hours, so no need for notes or screenshots. Now a word about our partner and sponsor, Brex. Brex is the first fully unified global spend platform with corporate cards, expense management, reimbursements, bill pay, procurement, and travel all in one place. Brex makes it easy for finance teams to manage every aspect of global spend at scale by empowering employees anywhere to make better financial decisions. Brex proudly serves tens of thousands of businesses, from enterprises to startups. Learn more at brex.com. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our moderator, and who will introduce our panelists as well, Tomar Piane, Senior Director of Product at Brex. Tomar, take it away.
All right, thank you, Neil. Welcome, everyone. Really excited to be joining all of you today and kind of spend the next hour talking about spend management and best practices. So just for introductions, my name is Thomas Piani. I'm a Senior Director of Product at Brex, and I lead Brex's spend management product. And I'm really excited to spend the next hour or so talking with you all about kind of how unifying your company's spend in one system can be really critical, and the power that it can unlock for companies. But better to hear about this from me. We thought it'd be more useful for you all to hear about it from real experts in the field. And so that's why I'm really excited to be joined today by 3 esteemed Brex customers. So we have Natalie from Triage Staffing Healthcare, Rafa from Graphite, and Brian from Inter Miami joining me today. And so I'll invite the 3 of you, if you want to turn on your webcams and come on stage. And then hey Rafael, hey Natalie, hey Brian, awesome to see you all. Thank you for being with us. Maybe to get started, if you want each of you want to introduce yourselves. And so why don't we start with you, Natalie, and then we'll go Brian and Rafael. So if you want to just introduce yourselves, what your role or what you do today, and then we'll get started.
Thanks, Thomas. My name is Natalie Dirksen. I've been with Triage Staffing for about 4 years. I've been, as of late, heading our company credit card platform, and I handle a couple of other supports in accounts payable as well. But yeah, the main focus of my position is credit card corporate platform control and spending. So yeah.
Awesome. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Brian Medina. I am the accounting manager here at Inter Miami CF. I've been here for 1.5 years, and I wear all hats, whether it's operations, audit risk, a little bit of everything. We are a small team, so we are just working a ton right now.
Awesome. Welcome,
Brian. Yeah, my name's Rafael Tiani. I lead operations at Graphite. We're a growth marketing agency and SaaS platform specializing in SEO. I lead the operations team, so that means the finance and accounting teams, legal, revenue operations, IT, all report to me. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you to Brex and to the Controllers Council for the invitation.
All right. So I think we can move on to the agenda. So today, what are we going to talk about? So we're going to hear from our panelists on how companies are managing spend today, and in particular, for each one of you, kind of what your experience was before Brex and what were some of the pain points that you had. And then we'll dive into how leading companies have automated and streamlined their finance operations. A big topic that's top of mind for folks is how do you get better visibility, accountability, but also reduce the burden for employees. So we'll talk a bit about that and some of your experiences, what some of your experiences have been. We'll deep dive into compliance. Compliance is a big topic as kind of finance, accounting leaders. It's your job to make sure that employees are compliant with the regulations or the policies that the company has. But sometimes that can come at odds with the employee experience. And so we'll talk about some of the best practices that you've seen and that you've used yourselves. And then we'll end with some thoughts on the future and what may come next in the field. Cool. And so kind of starting with our first topic, how companies are proactively managing their spend today. And so, maybe the first kind of question I'll ask to get us started is, we're talking about this concept of unified spend management. What does that really mean to you, and why is it so important to think about kind of unified platforms and unified spend management for your businesses? And so maybe Rafa, if you wanna get started there, and then we'll hear from Brian and Natalie as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is one of the things that Brex was a game changer for us. So before, and we became Brex customers about a year ago, a little more than that. Before that, we were banking with a bank that, let's just say, had an online platform that was not optimized for the user experience. We had multiple credit cards that were not connected to that bank account. So expense tracking was really complicated for us. Whenever we would have company travel, whenever we would have company events, anything like that, any type of company expense, keeping track of what people were basically using their cards for was very hard, not to say impossible. It was not only hard in terms of just keeping track of all of the expenses, but then getting all of the receipts, getting everything that we needed to validate that those expenses indeed had happened was very complicated. We basically had a Google Drive file in which people would upload the receipt, and then we would have to manually sort of try to match one-to-one to see what was what. Implementing Brex was a game changer for us. We basically moved away from any of the other solutions that we had, and 99% of all of our expenses today go through the platform. Additionally, just the fact that people on our team can just have the Slack integration and easily upload receipts immediately after making an expense, that has also been a game changer in terms of accountability for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Rafa. Brian, do you want to talk a bit about kind of what were you using before Brex and what some of your pain points were as well?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for asking. So essentially, unified spend management, now is just being able to have all our expenses in one channel of visibility, which makes our job easier. Before we had Brex, I was with the club for approximately 6 months, and we were with another bank whose system wasn't always willing to work with us, as Rafael can mention to that. And whether it be employees who are doing the jobs all over the world or traveling, charges not appearing on the server, or they can't upload memos, or they can't log in, and there's issues up and down. It made our month-end process for operations a nightmare, because we would have to get paper statements and track expenses one by one. And the time it took manually to just try to get in and expenses information instead of being able to analyze was detrimental. So over the period of a couple months where we implemented and negotiated with Brex and just basically brought it to the whole club, now all of our employees, no matter what department, what need, whether it be coaches who are not on laptops all day, or finance and accounting. You know, there's a mobile app, there's everything you need, a quick picture of the receipt, a quick enter of the memo. And we now today, because of Brex, are proactively being able to track to the second, to the day, seeing what's happening, what categories, and it's just completely helped make us way more efficient and lean as a team.
Awesome. Natalie, we're curious kind of what your experience was. Like, where did you come to Brex from? What were some of the pain points you had before Brex?
Yeah, certainly. I can really echo some of the sentiments that were shared by Brian and Rafael so far. We too came from a smaller bank platform before. It was not bank managed, so there was its own issue there. It was like a fintech managed platform, and customer support was not comparable to what we have now with Brex. Aside from that, though, I mean, in considering unified spend management and what that truly means for us, you know, we appreciate one cohesive environment that Brex currently offers, where our managers and department heads are able to track, you know, and provide access and monitor that access of spend without actually, you know, with good visibility, but without actually having to shoulder, you know, manual processes like what Brian was speaking to, the receipt upload and those types of things. So having the one environment is truly impactful too. We recently entered Brex's travel product, and overwhelming great positive feedback. So it's been great to empower employees with real-time access to data. That's been a great positive impact for our department managers as well.
Awesome. And I guess maybe to dive a bit more on this, and so kind of you started with Brex for spend management, and then you're kind of adding travel. Like talk a bit more about like what is the value of having like, you know, those different solutions like all in one platform? Like how does that, what kind of value does that create for you to kind of have this this all in one platform?
Sure. As Triage grew, our you know, volume of corporate travel spend certainly grew with it, and Brex has, as you know, the budgeting capability for, you know, divvying out allotted spend by department, and, you know, limiting spend based on need, and being able to, you know, within budgets in that function, you're able to you know, create what's appropriate for your team. You know, if someone just needs a recurring card, great. You can just have one recurring, you know, card budget to that effect. But some teams, you know, they wanted to set up more of a procurement model. Some teams, you know, do have more travel than others. So being able to utilize budgets as it relates to travel and plan trips, and have group, you know, spend in accordance to, you know, scheduled trips in advance, has also been a great, not only a time saver, but a great planning tool from like an FP&A perspective for our departments as well.
Awesome.
I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah. No, that's great. And we're gonna kind of dive into more of the benefits that kind of each type of user of the platform is getting, from employees to finance teams in a little bit. But before we do so, I think Natalie, you just talked really eloquently about kind of how you're leveraging Brex for some of the like kind of travel and like T&E spend, and some of the capabilities across spend management and the travel platform. Kind of curious for Rafa and Brian. I know you also use Brex for travel. What are other types of spend and other use cases that you're using Brex for today beyond kind of travel, to like employee travel? So Rafa, if you wanna start.
Sure. Yeah, I think that for us, one of the things that we've taken the most advantage of is the ability to create nested budgets and virtual credit cards. So we started as an agency, but nowadays we've branched out, and we have our consulting business, which specializes in SEO. We have a writing agency, and we also have a SaaS platform. Each of these, you know, businesses are within the Graphite umbrella, but internally they act as business units. Before Brex, basically, you know, all the expenses, it was really hard for us to track which business unit was inquiring in which expense. for us, the ability to basically create multiple nested budgets within each business unit and be able to create virtual credit cards for specific types of expenses. So for example, our consulting business unit has a nested budget for software only that even within itself has nested budgets for specific software expenses. Being able for us to just say, oh, this was made with credit card ending at 7549, we immediately know this is an expense for this specific category. This has sort of made our expense tracking process and allocation process way more efficient. Before that, we sort of sent everything to our corporate business unit and sort of made some assumptions in terms of distribution. We don't make assumptions anymore. We're able to precisely know how much money each business unit is spending, how are they spending it, and if there are opportunities for optimization.
Awesome. What about you, Brian? So what are kind of other examples of like spend use cases that you're using Brex for?
Yeah, no, like Natalie and Rafael mentioned, besides travel and expense tracks and just the flexibility it provides. So into Miami itself, as a sports club, its needs on a daily basis are very dynamic and versatile. So with that, we had to have a credit card with Brex that could able to, manage and assist us with that and not, bend or break. So when we implemented Brex starting the new year, we use this Brex capabilities, as Rafa mentioned, with building the budgets and whatnot, to really fine tune how we're going to map and plan our FP&A process for the year. So for example, now our IT team runs every single software for the company through our Brex code. We can track, okay, everything's coming in accordingly. And for our budget tracker and our expense tracker, we're able to have a lot more clarity with what's coming in and making sure that the controls are being in place. At the same time, with our teams traveling for the week to New York, they have the flexibility to make sure that all 50 rooms and the banquets are being served, while in Miami, our academy is still being able to book the buses to take the kids to school and tutors. So Brex is taking all that and making it seamless for us, all while being able to handle foreign conversion, translation for us, and just auto-generating the receipts, which is great too. So Brex in all aspects is just making our day-to-day just that 1% easier, which for us is huge.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you all. Super interesting to hear how you've been able to kind of leverage some of the functionality of the platform across really different kind of types of spend and use cases and bring that all together. Awesome. Well, we're gonna kind of dive into more of some of the benefits and the value that you've kind of been able to create across the company, your companies using Brex. But before we do so, I think we want to kind of move on to a first kind of audience poll question. So Neil, I'll hand it back to you to do that.
All right, I'm going to launch the first poll. So whether you're looking for CPE or benchmarking, please answer this quick question using the control panel. Please take a few more seconds to answer the poll. We're getting close. And we're not really going to discuss this as a panel today. We're just doing this for CP and benchmarking. So with that, I'll close the poll and we will not share the results. So moving on.
All right. Thanks, Neil. But obviously, we've I think touched on some of those benefits that we saw in the poll around kind of automation, ease of implementation, real-time visibility, etc. But great. So kind of moving on. So we've already touched on some really helpful and interesting areas of kind of benefits you've seen and value you've created by implementing Brex across your companies. But kind of to dive a bit deeper into this and really get to some of the details here. Maybe just to start, like if you for each one of you, I'll ask all of you, like what is like your favorite aspect of managing spend with Brex? Like if you had to pick one thing about the Brex product today, what would that be? And maybe let's start with you, Brian.
All right, awesome. Yeah, no, as an MLS team, there's a lot of expenses that were flowing through Brex. So my favorite aspect now and favorite control we're using is that, as Rafael and I have mentioned in the past, we had these set budgets for all of our employees who are had their Brex cards. So seeing on a monthly basis on, as the season progresses, what is the trend spend? What are the categories of spending on? Are we accurate with our forecasting? Or in other situations where it's, hey, look, we're having a crazy month like this month of July where certain, players are arriving we weren't expecting. How much is that going to change our, our spend? And what does that actually mean? So being able just to see that, gauge it, and then with our employees, see what departments are being hit the hardest in real time is helping us adjust to this new reality.
Awesome, makes sense. And Natalie, what about you?
Budgets was a close second for me. It was kind of a tie between budgets and the integration features, but I'd have to say probably the integration features. The initial difference maker that I found was in the like the GL account mapping and vendor mapping. Triage moved into a more robust finance planning and budgeting model over the past year and a half or so. Kind of a process, I guess. But to that point, those different expense tags became much more and more crucial for downstream reporting. So being able to, map items based on certain identifiers, like if this department is spending, or anything with this type of MCC code that this department spends under this amount, or I'm just trying to make something up, like that was far more instrumental than I knew it was going to be. And it's, now I have, I don't know, probably 30 custom rules that, alleviate a lot of that manual work that we used to have to shoulder in our previous environment, our previous credit card platform. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So and just for the audience, like which ERP are you using? Do you want to share which ERP you're using? What is the integration you're leveraging with Brex?
We are NetSuite clients, so we've been in NetSuite for a few years now.
Awesome.
Yeah, our prior credit card platform, to be clear, did not have any direct integration with NetSuite whatsoever, so it was all manual CSV uploading.
Great, thanks, Natalie. Rafa, what about you? Favorite Brex feature, Brex functionality?
Yeah, I hate to sort of repeat myself and not be very creative, but I feel like for us, it has to be the nested budgets. We're a fully remote team. We have a footprint in 8 different countries spread throughout the Americas and Europe. And just having the flexibility that someone on our team in Spain or in Germany, if they need a credit card, we don't have to ship them one or anything, but just create a nested budget, create a virtual credit card. 2 minutes later, they can just do it. They don't have to think, oh, what if I have to ask for a reimbursement? What if, there's an exchange, currency exchange or whatever? Just very simple. One example of this is one of our executives yesterday had an unexpected big expense that she needed to make. And she was like, I'm sorry, this is last minute. Should I put it on my personal card and then we can figure it out? And I was like, nope, no worries about it. Give me 2 minutes. You'll have a virtual credit card that you can access in the next 5. And yeah, and I feel like that has added a lot of value for us as a business, with virtually no offices and employees everywhere.
Very cool. And kind of building on that, kind of how would you like when you kind of think about the impact that that Brex has had on your business today? Like, how do you think about quantifying that? Like, what are the things you look at when you think about the impact that Brex has driven, or the different categories of impact?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think for us, Brex enabled something that we had wanted to do for a while, and operationally just would have been very complicated, which was basically being able to split our business into 3 different P&Ls. This was something that, as we were growing and having essentially 3 businesses under the umbrella of one, doing manually would have been very, very difficult. Brex sort of enabled us to do this in a very easy way. The revenue tracking was easy to do, but the expenses it was impossible for us to track, like, which business was what. The fact that we could just easily track everything on Brex and then just export that and have a clear perspective on actual expenses that are happening on each business unit, to us was a game changer, allowing us to just see actual accurate margins for each business unit, and not just making estimates, which is what we were doing before.
Awesome. And what about you, Natalie? When you think about kind of impact of Brex on your business, how you quantify that? What do you look at?
Yeah, I thought a little bit carefully about this one, because I know that there's been tremendous impact, but in quantifying that, I'd say previously I spent 25 to 30 hours per month, all in with managing our card platform, and whether that's upload, user support, whatever it is, like, that's about the allocation of time that I spent. I'd say that it's down to easily 15 hours or less with Brex, and that includes, I mean, even basic Q&A, which I don't shoulder nearly as much of that, obviously, because of Brex support and our ability to lean on Brex support. So yeah, our FP&A team is, easily able to just drill into, receipt and the original Brex transaction itself. We've given them user access. It was one of those more meaningful pieces of our integration we were able to set up with our Brex team in the beginning. So that was great. We're at like a 90% overall compliance rate for documentation and receipts at any given time during the month. I'd say at month end, we strive to get those stragglers in and get it more closer to the 100% mark, just, as a best practice. But and as far as the reviewing of that documentation and some of those policy parameters that we've set up, another good number to throw to that would be the fact that over 75%, I think it's actually 76% of our managers are on time with reviewing their employees' expenses as it relates to whatever amount that might be. Yeah, so the the impact definitely can be quantified in a few different ways. Those are the key. Those are some of the greatest impacts, I think, that come to mind for us. And I just kind of grabbed those actually a couple days ago while I was looking in our Brex reporting functions, which again are much easier to move around in. So so yeah.
Love that. Thanks, Natalie. Brian, what about you? Kind of how do you think about impact and quantifying that?
Oh man. Okay, so I could definitely say it's in 3 big areas. For the personal one, for the accounting team, just like Natalie said, making our entire month-end close process and our review process cut in half, making it more efficient, allowing just for pure analysis. It's a lot less manual work, so it's reduced our overall workload by half. Secondly, I would say for all the employees of the club, before, because of the issues with our old provider, a lot of employees, with whether it be charges not popping up or anything like that, would put off not enter receipts or just uploading in the credit card server. And it was just the biggest complaint we got from every single employee in the club. And since January, there's been zero. It's all just been, hey, look, I'll upload it to Sorry. It's really quick. Here's a picture, here's a text. And it's just been employee compliance, employee morale with the ease of it all. It just makes everything smoother for us and the club. And it definitely helps with cohesiveness of every department. And lastly, the biggest quantifier I could use is that just July 16th, we had a very large event here in Miami, and due to their responsiveness and how quick Brex can react to live payment and adjusting budgets and increasing budgets, we were able to bring a player from Spain on a private plane from Spain to Miami all through Brex, paying a card, and we were able to make this world event happen with the actual player, and it wouldn't have been possible without Brex.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure some of the audience has seen Inter Miami in the news lately. There's been lots of exciting things happening, so pretty cool to see how Brex has helped on that. But obviously across other kind of areas around the employee impact and impact for the team in reducing workload. Yeah, thanks all three of you. Super thoughtful answers and really interesting to see kind of how you look at the impact, and ultimately that's what we're aiming for. One kind of last thing, looking at like the impact and how you're using, I think, Rafa and Brian in particular, you both touched on some of the value of kind of managing Brex across different countries, different markets with different currencies. Can you talk a bit more about that? Kind of what are some of the use cases you have in terms of kind of serving employees or spend that happens globally, and kind of where Brex has been helping on that front? So Brian, if you want to start.
Of course. So we have scouts all over the world looking for soccer players where they can. And for our director of scouting, whenever he travels, he has zero issues swiping in whatever country, whatever currency he needs to do. And we are seeing that conversion happen in real time in Brex. And there's never been a situation where he's had a rejection or something getting declined. It's being able to pass through no matter where he is. All he has to make sure he has phone service or Wi-Fi, upload his receipts, and we can, ensure that all his needs are being met all over the world to ensure that he can fulfill his duties.
Very cool. Rafa, what about you?
Yeah, I would say our case is very similar. We have clients all over the world. We work with big companies like Netflix, Masterclass. Our CEO often goes to visit, the executives at those companies that we work with, whether they're in the US or abroad. And yeah, it's in a similar situation to what Brian was explaining. He'll sometimes, be invited to a special executive meeting at some company that they're doing maybe in France or somewhere else. And he just has to hop on a plane and go there sort of unexpectedly. And the fact that he knows that he can rely on his Brex card to just, do anything he needs to do and make sure that, whatever expenses that he needs to basically have on the trip are going to be covered. He's never had an issue with the card. He can easily upload receipts using the Slack integration. It's generally made the experience for him less stressful, and for the rest of our executives that also sometimes need to travel to meet with clients, along with just people on our team that might be in other countries outside of the US, and that will sometimes need to take our clients, do a team event in Colombia or do a team event in Mexico. And the fact that they can also easily submit expenses for reimbursement being outside of the US has also been a game changer for us.
Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, no, Tomas, and just to add on to that, I just clicked into my head. And if any of those travels or anything else happens and they lose the card because the Brex card is on the Apple Wallet or can use a digital card, there's never a fear of, oh no, I have to wait 2 days to get the FedEx overnight to whatever country I'm going to be in or I'm currently in. It's a constant, hey, look, even if you lose it, you will be okay.
Yeah, very cool. And Natalie, I think Triage also has a few employees that travel internationally or have global spend as well.
We do have a few international employees. One of the members of our leadership team is based in Europe, but we don't typically have spend in international markets per se. All of our business is US-based hospitals and medical staffing. But yeah, I have yet to, hear any issue with using the Brex corporate cards that we have with international users yet. Yeah, and so far they've had great things to say about it in comparison to other platforms that they've experienced too. So
Yeah, no, awesome. All right, awesome. So we're going to deep dive a bit more into kind of employee compliance. Like you all, I think, started talking about really interesting things there. So we're going to deep dive into that next. But before we do so, Neil, if you want to kind of do the second poll questions for the group.
All right, audience, please use your control panel to answer this next poll. Just take a couple more seconds here so we can get your vote in. And it looks like we're slowing down on that, so I'll go ahead and close. Turn it back to you.
All right, thanks, Neil. Cool. So next, I want to spend a bit of time to deep dive into how you all have been kind of thinking about employee compliance and like ways to automate that or to get this higher, so your teams can close the books faster every month, and you kind of make sure that employee spend is going in the right places. So you all like started touching on that. In particular, Natalie, like you already have some of the stats on like how you're doing, which is quite cool. Yeah, we're curious, and maybe we can start with you. What are kind of some of the tactics and some of the functionality that you've seen have impact, that you've used to improve employee compliance and manager compliance as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Recently, over the past few months, Triage did roll out more robust like T&E policy and cardholder policy. So that certainly had an impact. But I think that even more importantly is that there are tools within Brex that help us to monitor and actually implement those parameters. For example, the budget limits obviously being one, but also receipt compliance. We currently use there are several different options for choosing how often or how many days that employees have to comply with like documentation and memoing and things like that. And then the review period for management as well. For anyone on the call that might not be as familiar, but we go ahead and set ours to a 5-day review for all employees and then a 5-day review for all managers. We have yet to get any pushback on this. I mean, we have well over 120 cardholders. I mean, it's, so far it's just been such a better model for us to work within because of the notifications, because of like that extra added convenience that the Brex mobile app offers, like what Brian had been talking about also. I think you alluded to that too. But yeah, so the 5-day policy for 5 in documentation and in review, and then that reinforced by our policies that we're able to kind of embed within some of our Brex settings, if you will. So yeah,
makes sense. Brian, I know you touched on that as well. Like what do you see working? What's helping you and your team, and your kind of employees on the compliance side?
Yeah, no, for sure. For compliance, just the ease of it, that would be the number one thing I would say. Now, no employee, no matter age, position, department, nothing, can tell us that they don't have a laptop, they don't have time to get to the computer. Do you have a phone, Android, Apple, I don't care what brand, anything. As long as you have the internet, and you can download this app, or you can just log into the website. You can take 2 minutes to just drop a picture, or you can do whatever you need to do. Because in the past, I understand that the credit card server had issues and made the process to stay compliant very meticulous and difficult. In a very fast-paced environment, that's not something where you want to slow down in. So just the ease with it all, like Nelly mentioned, Inter Miami did integrate that as part of like our, with our HR team as compliant now. So now there's like a credit card policy, which now every employee has to abide by. And with the lifetime tracking of all the expenses, we can pinpoint a swipe and say, hey, look, what is this for? Like, are you being compliant? Like, why are you doing this? Is this form coming in for this? Or do you tend to bring it in? So at the end of the month, if a employee is not being compliant, or we're having issues with compliance, the possibility for Brex to freeze a card, pause a card, lock a card, reduce budgets, whatever we need to do, it's made compliance now just smooth overall. Whether for employees who are finding life way easier or who want to, test the limits.
Yeah, makes sense. So the carrot and the stick, and kind of being able to use both of these. Now that makes a lot of sense. Rafa, anything to add on this from your experience?
I think, very similar to what the team has mentioned already, and what I've mentioned before, just the ease of it, the fact that we, as a full remote tech company, we're very reliant on Slack, and the fact that whenever there's a new expense, everyone gets a message through the bot, right? Reminding them like, hey, don't forget, you have to upload a picture, you have to write the memo. And then, like Brian mentioned, like it's as simple as you go on your phone, Android, Apple, whatever you're using, they can do it from their computers as well. If it was an expense that they made, using a desktop, they can just easily fill it out, and then we're done. And just, the ease of it is what we were not able to achieve before. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you all started talking about this a bit, but what are some pieces of advice, some advice that you'd give to other companies that are kind of looking for better ways to control their spend and drive higher compliance? Like, what would you recommend? I think a lot of companies kind of struggle with, should we put in like more stringent rules, but how do we think about like the burden on employees? How much should we rely on like automation versus doing manual reviews? Like, curious, kind of your based on your experience, like what is some of the advice that you would have for folks? And maybe Natalie, if you want to start.
Sure, absolutely. There was definitely a lot of thought around, what would be the most appropriate setting for us, to generate those notifications and like what deadline. But when we thought about it, if we were more relaxed with our deadline, then there was just that much more time that potentially documentation could be lost, or it maybe wasn't available anymore. So there was that added, like, yes, okay, maybe this is more stringent, if you will, but it also, when the notifications or when the reminders are coming for a sooner date, it's more likely that we're actually going to capture that detail, that we're going to capture the document. At least that's kind of how I felt at the time. But customizing budgets and front end controls from a policy standpoint, I haven't mentioned it yet, but with a very select group of users, we issued them virtual cards for the sake of being able to do, just one very repeated, very manual task, and they only needed to have their cards for one type of purchase. So we disabled all other MCC codes besides those specific vendors or merchants, that they would be using. So that was one of the first times that we kind of experimented with that feature, and it was incredibly useful. We didn't have problems with false declines or anything like that. And another, I guess the last thing that comes to mind for me is that with compliance in general, the visibility that the department managers have to their employees spend from a budget perspective is huge. You know, all of that data was essentially siloed within each username in our old platform. So, you know, yes, we do have budget review with managers in which they're able to see, you know, spend by vendor, by employee, whatever at the end of the month. Like by then though, I mean, it's been weeks and they do really, they have really grown to appreciate and just become used to having the ability just to drill right in. You know, if I'm missing a document from someone, lastly, I'll mention the comment feature is huge. I can literally just, you know, comment on something like, hey, I don't think this is the right receipt. Or, hey, do you maybe have something else with this? You know, if there's any question about being able to tag with the appropriate GL at all, you know, they just get an email where it's automatically linked and I can just still work within that environment within Brex and not have to hop around in a disjunct workflow. So sorry for the long-winded response, but there we go.
No, this was great. Thank you for the details. Brian, any kind of other like pieces of advice or learnings for folks on the call on how to kind of, you know, optimize compliance for employees?
Yeah, for sure. When we were going through the implementation process, we had a lot of meetings with directors of each department to discuss, hey, look, what are your needs? What are your budgets? Like, who in your team do you want to have a card? So that way there was very clear communication back and forth and teamwork of, okay, these are expectations, these are what you're saying your needs are. So that way going forward, when the Brex cards were given out, it was very clearly stated, hey, look, like this is your team, this is your spend. If you're going over or they're spending on things they shouldn't be, you built this with us. Like this isn't just the accounting team doing something. This isn't just the finance team. This is an entire team of Inter Miami together on this project together, make everybody more efficient and more, you know, and it's a better process. Like Natalie mentioned, yes, at the end of the month, we had these monthly reviews with directors and we go, hey, look, what's this? What's this? What's this? But to the point now that they've grown accustomed throughout the month, you know, hey, look, if they swipe a certain thing and they don't put the memo, the email's coming, hey, we saw this curious charge, do you mind getting some more information? And just the fact that they now know, like, hey, look, you know, we're analyzing, we're looking at it, you know, this was something that was worked on with the director. It's that by itself and just the team atmosphere pushes for compliance.
Yeah, so co-creating the program and making everyone feel like they're a part of it, in particular department leaders, that makes a lot of sense. Rafa, anything to add on kind of advice or learnings?
Yeah, no, I think that, you know, what was really helpful for us from the start is that we sort of had a rough idea of what we were looking for when we started chatting with the Brex team. And then, you know, the experience that they had working with companies like us that were having similar issues, the ones that we had. And they helped us just take how you like the rough draft that we had to the next level and be like, here's actually all the things that you can do. There are things on our list that didn't exist, right? Like that we didn't know even existed, I should say. And the fact that Brex is like thinking one step ahead and just helping us come up with interesting ideas of, oh, how can we optimize these processes based on what you guys are seeing other companies do? I think that's been super helpful. One other example that I just thought of is we have budget limits for each individual nested budget, right? But sometimes, you know, people will go above their budget, and not because they're like overspending, but because there might have been a one-off expense that was larger. For example, you know, if a yearly renewal for a SaaS subscription comes up, it's maybe suddenly a 10K hit extra that we have not predicted. The fact that we can just have flexible budgets and we can quickly just change that so that the card doesn't get rejected, that has also been super helpful, so that things are not being stopped because we're not expecting, you know, a software renewal or a new software subscription that we didn't have planned out.
All right. Awesome. So now this was great. So we'll kind of move on to the poll questions for this section, and then we'll kind of finish with our last topic, which is talking a bit about the future of spend management.
All right, launching this poll. Please take a look. It's a super easy one. 3 answers. Few more seconds, please. Try and get your voting in. All right, let's close that poll and move on then to the next question.
Awesome. Great. And so, I mean, we've talked a lot about, you know, where you all are and kind of what you've been able to leverage with Brex. Kind of to end this this panel, I want to get your thoughts on what you think is coming down the pike, and kind of where really Brex should be focusing on next. So, you know, I know you all are always thinking about kind of ways to innovate, ways to kind of streamline your operations further, to you know, get faster, you know, get more efficient while achieving business objectives. Yeah, so kind of really the question is a bit more open-ended, like, you know, how do you think like technology is going to help like finance leaders like you controlling spend in down the future and down the line or in the future, and why does that matter? So Rafa, let's start with you. Like, what do you think are some of the biggest opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of various things, but I would say first and foremost, just increased visibility. I think that's been one of the things that we've talked about today. Just the fact that, you know, in our specific case, we were able to move from, we have several credit cards going around. They're not directly connected to our bank account. So every month we wait for the statement, and then we look at all of the expenses and we sort of try to match what is what, to just being able to basically live, be able to see how are we spending money. That has been a huge game changer for us. I think that's the future of the industry, being able to just every day review expenses. And if you wanted, you know, if I wanted, I could right now just go and see what are the expenses that we've had today, review them, talk to the person that did them, see if it was relevant or not, if there were any issues. I think that's a game changer. I think the other thing is flexibility. So as I was mentioning before, like, you know, with old solutions, you would have a limit. And if you hit the limit, then you would have to talk to an account manager and tell them, hey, look, I have an unexpected expense that's coming up. I need to increase my limit so the credit card doesn't get rejected. With Brex, it's incredibly simple. I go on the platform, I increase the budget. I can increase it for a one-off expense, or I can increase it just for perpetuity, depending on what that's coming from. And I think that's also a game changer. The fact that, you know, you can just easily do things on the platform, play around, increase budgets, and the ability to just have a really like native and friendly user experience is for me a game changer as well. So I would highlight those two things.
Makes sense. Natalie, what about you? Kind of where do you see the future going there?
Thank you. Great answer, Rafa. You know, when I think about the future of spend management and, you know, kind of like our past couple of years in our experience here at Triage, I think of how the data availability within the Brex environment is so much less siloed than we used to have it between each process, whether, you know, and you know, traditionally I just think of like, well, you know, reimbursements go through this person, you know, like credit cards go through this person, you know what I mean? But as I see Brex growing in its, you know, product portfolio that offers, you know, solutions within one login, that's very key for many people. They just want a one-stop shop or one place to go. Like that's not only convenient, but from like a management, like a spend management perspective, that's data availability, and that's access, that's real time. And I think that in a changing world, like we've all witnessed over the past few years, it becomes pretty crucial to be able to change course in a moment's time. It becomes crucial to be able to book a flight from Spain, and, you know, to just, so I see, you know, that ability to turn on a dime being facilitated by the data being at your fingertips and not, oh, give me a second while I look this up. Well, I really truly only need a second, when I'm looking for that data in Brex. So that's probably, I think that's the best that I can summarize. So.
Awesome. No, it's super helpful. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, no, for spend management, I would say the biggest key point for spend management is feeling confident that the information we're getting is complete and accurate. So that way I truly know that the information and the spending I'm managing is correct. And with Brex's capabilities, I get to see, like Rafa said, every decline transaction, every attempted transaction, the one to the second, to the minute, to the day, I can filter whatever I need to do. It really gives us a complete idea of what our spend management is, so that in the future, when we do get to be integrated with our server, we're not as lucky as NetSuite yet. We are soon, very soon. We're still uploading the CSV, but it's just going to make the whole process of operational accounting and just the day-to-day a more streamlined process. Because as Natalie and Rafa said, yes, you need to have easier user interface, being able to have our information in one place, data availability. That way, if our FP&A team has a specific question, the data's there and we can analyze and we can pull it. It's not a complete ad hoc project because it take us days. It's just some Brex filters, know how to extract it, and it's there. So the future is being able to leverage the tools you already have in a more augmented basis, and Brex is doing that in spades.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all three of you for this, and we of course are very excited to continue innovating with you all and with your feedback. All right, so we're almost at time. So I'll just kind of close it out there before thanking our panelists. Yeah, we covered a ton of really helpful content. So thank you all three of you for all the thoughtful answers. We talked, kind of about how you all are able to like leverage Brex to help streamline your operations. We talked a lot about kind of the employee experience and the ease of use and how that's helping drive compliance. We talked a lot about budgets and the flexibility and how that helps drive kind of better visibility and automation of reporting and accounting. We talked about our accounting integrations and kind of like where some of the automation around accounting rules is helping cut down on kind of time spent by the team. We also covered global capabilities and kind of spend internationally. So really we went through a wide range of topics. Yeah, so thank you, Natalie, Rafa, Brian, for the time and for sharing your experience. Really helpful to hear from you all. And yeah, thank you for spending time with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yes.
And Neil, I'll turn it over to you to close it up. Neil, do you wanna kind of close it out or?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, thank you. We did have a few audience questions that we'll follow up with post webcast. But yes, I would like to thank all of you, our moderator, Thomas Piane, our panelists, Rafa, Natalie, and Brian, for these great insights today. And many thanks to our partner and sponsor, Brex. Last but certainly not least, thank you to you, our attendees, and great success to you in 2023. Goodbye.